Imagine a serene town in northern Italy shattered by a chilling massacre that shook the nation to its core. Today, we're talking about a very sad incident called the Strage di Erba. It was a terrible event where 4 people lost their lives. We'll explore what happened, how it happened, and why it became such a big deal in Italy. Stick around to find out the unbelievable truth behind this shocking case, exploring the flaws in police procedures, the dark world of forced confessions, and the broader implications for the Italian justice system. But before we go deeper, get ready for some really interesting parts of the story that'll keep you wanting to know more. Italy was horrified when they learned that a middle-aged couple who looked ordinary had killed 4 of their neighbors over a dispute about noise, committing a brutal crime that has shocked the entire country. It was the evening of December 11th, 2006 when this gripping murder took place. 4 persons lost their lives to Armando Diaz. A carotid artery malfunction saved one who was severely injured, and her testimony was crucial in ending one of Italy's most well-known criminal cases. The Erba Massacre, also known as Strage di Erba, took place that December afternoon 17 years ago, when Youssef Marzouk was just 2 years old. His mother, Raffaella Castagna, grandmother Paola Galli, and partner Youssef Marzouk, Valeria Cherubini, who was the neighbor of the woman who lost her husband, also lost her life in that evening. The 2 partners who shared a home with Raffaella Castagna, Youssef Marzouk, Rosa Bazzi, as well as Olindo Romano, were proven guilty of several murders. The housekeeper and the garbage collector of the house on Armando Diaz were given life sentences and are now in prison in Opera jail. The neighbors were announced guilty based on 3 key things. Firstly, the sole survivor, Mario Frigerio, testified about what happened during the tragic event. Secondly, investigators found a bloodstain in Olindo Romano's car door, which raised suspicions. Lastly, even though they retracted their statements later, the neighbors initially confessed to the crime. The highest court refused to re-examine the case because they believed these pieces of evidence were extremely strong and undeniable, leaving no room for doubt. The prosecutor in Milan wants to take another look at the case because they think there might have been a mistake. They wrote a long report explaining why they believe Olindo and Rosa might not be guilty. The Erba Massacre was a terrible crime in Italy's history. It was awful because it was very brutal. Many people were hurt, and the way it happened was shocking. Let's go through what happened on December 11th, 2006. On the night of December 11, 2006, around 8:20 p.m., there was a fire at a house in Erba. Some neighbors, including a firefighter who volunteered, rushed into the building and went up the stairs to the first floor where the fire was. As they got closer, they found a man, Mario Frigerio, hurt in the throat and noticed that the door of the burning house was partly open. When they went inside, they sadly found Raffaella Castagna's lifeless body. The woman's body was quickly taken out of the apartment. When the smoke got thicker, the rescuers had to leave her and Frigerio outside and call for more help. After the local firefighters arrived and stopped the fire, they found 3 more bodies. These included Paola Galli, who was Raffaella Castagna's mother, young Youssef Marzouk, and Valeria Cherubini, who was the neighbor and also Frigerio's wife. From what investigators found, Castagna was attacked with a metal bar while she might have been turned away. She suffered severe head injuries and was then set on fire. The attackers also stabbed her 12 times and cut her throat. Raffaella's mother, Paola Galli, was also killed in the apartment, and the 2-year-old child was stabbed in the throat too. The neighbor, Valeria Cherubini, was killed to prevent her from being a witness using a sharp weapon. The Frigerio family's dog also tragically died from breathing in carbon monoxide during the fire. Investigators believe there were 2 attackers involved, with one of them being left-handed. Let's talk about the victims and how they were killed. Raffaella Castagna, the first victim, was 30 years old and worked part-time caring for disabled people. She was the mother of 2-year-old Youssef from her relationship with Youssef Marzouk. Some neighbors mentioned that Raffaella and Youssef had frequent disagreements with Rosa Bazzi and Olindo Romano about noise disturbances at night. Apart from small arguments about living in the same building, the 2 families didn't have any major issues. The defense of the accused spouses claimed that these disagreements weren't enough reason for such a terrible event to happen. On December 11th, Paola Galli, Raffaella's 60-year-old mother who often visited her grandson and helped manage the house, tragically died. She was stabbed and suffered head injuries. Valeria Cherubini, who lived upstairs with her husband Mario Frigerio, didn't have any arguments with the accused. Frigerio mentioned he didn't immediately accuse Romano of the attack because their relationship was good. Mario Frigerio was the only survivor. Despite being stabbed in the throat due to an artery problem, he managed to save himself. Initially, investigators looked into Youssef Marzouk, Raffaella's husband, as a suspect. However, he was in Tunisia visiting his parents when the tragedy occurred. Upon his return to Italy, the police confirmed his alibi and started looking into the possibility of someone seeking revenge against him. Rosa Bazzi and Olindo Romano were the neighbors of the victims, especially Raffaella Castagna, and had previous legal conflicts with her. Suspicion grew because the couple showed little interest after the murders compared to other neighbors who were concerned. Police seized their clothes and kept an eye on their home and car. Investigators noticed wounds in their hands and arms. When questioned, the couple quickly showed a McDonald's receipt, seemingly avoiding listening to other questions which raised doubts about their alibi. However, investigators found it suspicious because the receipt showed a time that didn't match when they'd usually have dinner at Romano's house. They thought this was a clumsy attempt to avoid suspicion. Further suspicions arose as the couple didn't discuss the case at home while everyone else was talking about it nationwide. The investigators saw this as an attempt to avoid saying anything that could implicate them. On December 26, blood was found in their car attributed to Valeria Cherubini. The couple's defense argued that this blood might have been transferred during the police search, pointing out that the officers involved in the search had also been at the crime scene. However, the prosecution believed the blood was clear evidence against Rosa and Olindo, as it was the only trace found in their car, clothes, and home, indicating their possible involvement in the crime. After Olindo Romano had given this confession, along with his wife Rosa Bazzi, chaos erupted in the courtroom, forcing the judge to stop the session. The prosecution believed their retractions were due to a change in defense strategy and lawyers. Subsequently, they were sent for trial. During the trial in 2008, the couple behaved oddly, giggling and showing affection for each other, even during disturbing photos of the victim's child shown in court. Olindo claimed the police coerced his confession, promising a lighter sentence and Rosa's release. Neighbors reported that the couple had created a fearful environment in the building, with arguments, threats, and even throwing objects into neighbors' terraces. In November 2008, the court sentenced them to life in prison with daytime isolation for 3 years. They were also ordered to pay compensation for the victims' families. In 2010, the appeals court in Milan upheld the life sentence with the additional measure of daytime isolation for the couple. According to Tarfuzzer, Rosa and Olindo may not be guilty. He thinks the proof against them isn't very strong. The main evidence was the story from Mario Frigerio, who passed away, finding blood in Olindo's car and what the couple said about the crime. The Attorney General doubted Frigerio's memory because he was hurt and had breathed in smoke. At first, Frigerio described someone different from Olindo. He only named Olindo after talks with the police. The defense says Frigerio might have been influenced by how the police asked questions, which might have made him mistakenly think Olindo did it. But now that Frigerio is gone, it's hard to know the truth. This makes people question whether Rosa and Olindo were involved in what happened in Erba. The defense claims that Frigerio mentioned Olindo's name in a later interview after being prompted about it multiple times by the authorities, which happened about 9 times before his final statement. However, the cassation judges who upheld the couple's sentence noted that initially Frigerio hesitated to name Romano because he felt uncertain between having a clear memory and not fully understanding what had happened. The second key evidence, according to Tarfuzzer, is the blood found in Olindo's car. This blood, confirmed to be from the victims, might have ended up there accidentally, not intentionally. But the court thinks it's the only mistake in cleaning up evidence. It's the only link between the tragedy and the couple, but the cassation court mentioned other evidence that pointed to the couple's involvement during the investigations. Rosa and Olindo confessed to freeing each other, claiming they were pressured. But the court believes their confessions were reliable because they knew details only someone there would know. Olindo's note in his Bible seeking forgiveness was considered too. The court trusts the three main pieces of evidence, saying they match the trial story. They think Frigerio didn't name Olindo immediately because he couldn't understand why a neighbor would attack them so violently. The Court of Cassation believed that Rosa and Olindo knew specific details about the crime that only someone who was there during the murder would know. For instance, they knew the positions of the bodies, how the electricity was turned off manually, that Raffaella came home in her car, and that the fire was started with a pile of books. The lawyers of Olindo Romano and Rosa Bazzi, the two spouses convicted for the incident, have asked for the sentence to be reviewed. Later on, Milan's substitute, Kuno Terfusser, requested a review of the case. Rosa and Olindo's lawyer, Fabio Schembri, revealed on a TV show called Iceberg on Tele Lombardia that he has new audio recordings of the couple. These recordings, intercepted a few days after the tragedy, are part of the review request. Olindo expressed hope for the review, stating, "I hope for the review. I want to be with Rosa out of prison." According to their lawyer, the new recording suggests that someone was in Raffaella Castagna's house before the crime. The energy usage data indicates that some devices were switched on 2 hours after Raffaella left the house. Olindo expressed his happiness about the request to reopen the case in Brescia, stating that he's glad the request has arrived in Brescia. Now that the waiting for it to be sent is over, he's eager for the case to restart. On the other side, lawyer Schembri reiterated that they checked the annal records and they confirmed for sure that someone was in Raffaella Castagna's apartment. Neighbors who lived below also heard noises before the tragedy supporting this claim. Tarfusser, who worked at the International Criminal Court for a long time, presented a report saying he did it for justice. He thinks the two people might be in jail for a mistake. His report, about 58 pages long, talks about mistakes in the investigation and trial. For example, there were recordings when Frigerio was in the hospital. These recordings never got used. Frigerio's description of the attacker didn't match Olindo's appearance, suggesting it might be a mistake in his memory. Tarfusser also criticized the way the couple confessed, saying it happened because of wrong interview techniques. Olindo made many mistakes when describing what happened that night. About 243 errors is counted. In one clip from the Lay-An program, Olindo seems confused and asks the questioners to write whatever they want. Meanwhile, Rosa Bazzi, according to psychiatric reports, might have some mental challenges. According to the lawyer, an energy consultant checked the electricity use before the tragic incident on Via Diaz in Erba. There was nobody supposed to be in the house according to the court's decision. However, the electricity use at that time was quite high. This examination confirms that there were people in Castagna's house just before the tragedy using lights and various appliances. We ruled out the possibility of the light being accidentally left on. The type of electricity used suggests it wasn't just for lighting. The lawyer further explained, Castagna left home around 1 p.m. and electricity use started around 3 p.m., peaking around 5 p.m. It could have been from devices like a washing machine, TV, or microwave. Then, just before the tragedy, the lights were either turned off deliberately or there was an electrical short circuit. Over time, the Castagna and Frigerio families maintained a low profile. The trial review, which has gone through all 3 levels of the Italian legal system, is an exceptional way to appeal a case. It needs specific conditions to be met as it aims to overturn the final verdict. New evidence is the only thing that could change the sentence. But Pietro and Alberto Castagna, who lost their mother, sister, and nephew in the tragedy, don't agree. "We believe there's only one truth," they wrote. They firmly believe that Rosa and Olindo are the ones responsible for the crime. Peter and Beppe Castagna expressed sadness by saying, "I was hoping it was over, but here we go again," in response to the thought that their case could be reopened. "It's not our place to defend the prosecutor's office, the investigators, or their work. Instead, let us stand up for the truth, which is the only truth that matters to us. Let us express our disapproval and disbelief when we hear those who characterize the guilty as innocent victims of a summary and biased legal system, even going so far as to call them a gentle giant and a frail lady. This gentle giant and this frail lady ruthlessly murdered our father's life, our sister, our small nephew. Mrs. Valeria and me and Beppe became a constant source of nightmares for Elena and Andrea Frigerio. They also tried to murder Mr. Mario, ruining his life in our father's a few years later. This shocking case raised various issues, including the effectiveness of police procedures, the reliability of confessions, and the broader implications for the Italian justice system. From the brutal tragedy to the controversial trial, the Erba Massacre remains a haunting example of the uncertainties and challenges within the Italian legal framework. Thanks for joining us on this journey into the unsettling depths of the Erba tragedy. Remember, the truth often lies in the most unexpected places.